where we have been. So we started the very first night talking about the life mechanism. So we said that if you choose goals that are appropriate for you, and you choose attitudes that are positive, you will motivate yourself to act in a way in which you'll be very successful at creating a life experience that becomes satisfying. So this is the effect. You create this reality by the choices you make. So then if you choose a goal that's not appropriate for you, or if you choose to have a negative attitude, you'll motivate yourself and you'll act, but the machine now starts moving in a different direction. You will become successful at creating a life that becomes dissatisfying. So if there's anything in your life right now that you are happy with, check out the choices you've made and continue to do that. If there's something in your life that needs change, change your choices. Now, of course, how to make choice is the reason why we get into meditation. Because in meditation, when you lower your brain frequencies, and the brain frequencies are here, between 0 and 14, you are in what we describe as a meditative state. This is where we become consciously aware of God's presence that's with us all the time. Please note here, there is no limit of time or space. Now, the scientific community reinforces that and tells us that what they call subconscious or an altered state of consciousness is connecting us to an unlimited energy source where there is no limit. So not only from a scientific point, but also from a theological point of view, and there is proof that we are all connected to an unlimited energy source, which theologically we refer to as God. The scientists can't use those words, so they refer to that reality as cosmic energy or universal intelligence. But it's the same reality. Now, the point is that in meditation, if you fill your mind with good, healthy, wholesome, positive thoughts, record those on the brain and they go into the subconscious, you will become a good, healthy, wholesome, positive person. But if you fill your mind with garbage, that also will get recorded on the brain, and when it goes into the subconscious, what do you think you're going to get out here? That's right. So the discipline is always in the thought process. Now remember, I said this. You are all powerful, spiritual beings. And that's the most powerful part of you. Your thought process creates the entire reality of the physical world. And so it becomes very important that you learn how to discipline the thought process, because what you create in your mind becomes the reality in the external world. Now the saints were very insistent about this. They said if you want to take total control of your life, you must be involved in the discipline they refer to as mental prayer or meditation. Now this is part of the system that our Pope is very interested in giving to the entire world. He wants people to get involved with love and compassion. That's the essence of what Jesus gave us. And when you go into meditation and you are doing that on a daily basis, you will become a loving and compassionate person and also an ethical person. And that's why the scientific community is saying we must get more and more people on the planet to meditate, because if we do that, we will get closer and closer to world peace. So then we talked about how you can use meditation to develop faith and or positive attitudes. So if you fill your mind constantly, with positive thoughts at the subconscious level, then you create positive attitudes. But if you fill your mind with negative thoughts, you create negative attitudes. So we're back again to making sure that you push your thought process always in a positive direction. So today we want to talk about how to use meditation to know God's will. So let me first start off with just a couple of general comments. You know, if you try to work on your life all at one time. You know, that's a huge package. And what I have seen frequently in my own life is that some people do a little bit of work here, and a little bit of work there, and a little bit here, and a little bit there. And when they step back and they don't see any change, they just get discouraged and they say, to heck with it. Let me give you an example. All the years that I was being trained in the order, all of our houses had gardens. So, you know, when we had those very, very severe winters, and spring comes, the friars get all excited about the garden. Somebody's going to dig up the soil, somebody gets manure, somebody gets the plants and or the seeds, and very soon you have these nice rows, you know, and a picture of what's going to come up. And then for some reason, as spring moves into summer, the enthusiasm for the garden seems somehow to fall away. And I was doing a tour in the midsummer, and I was cooped inside for a long time, so I thought when I got home, I'll go out and work in the garden. So I went out there, and I couldn't find it. It was buried in weeds, some of which were like this. So I thought, you know, I'm going to walk through the garden and very carefully pull out all these big weeds, which I did. It took me about an hour, and I had a big pile of weeds. But when I looked over the garden, it was still a huge mess, and I said, to heck with it, I quit. Now, the next day, I had the urge to go out there again, and I thought, well, I'm not going to do what I did, because it wasn't very satisfying. So I thought, you know, I'm going to get on my hands and knees, and I'm going to just find out where that first row is, and I'm going to pull out all the weeds just in that row so I can see the plants and the fruit, which I did. After about an hour, I had another big pile of weeds, but when I got finished, I looked at that row and I thought, wow, I think I'll come back tomorrow and do the next row. You see the difference in the thought process. See, if you see progress, you're more likely going to want to continue to do the work. And I think it's that way in our lives too. So what I've done in my own life is I've broken this huge package down into 7 basic categories. Okay? And now this is a system that I use. You can alter it however you want. It's just a way of trying to help you to pull your life together. So the very first category is faith. Now for me, this is a very broad definition of faith. So it doesn't refer just to organized religion, but it refers to faith in myself, faith in other people, faith in the life experience. So it's a very broad approach to faith for me. Then the next step is family. Now, of course, that's blood family. But in my case, for example, I live with friars, which is also another family. So I have goals that relate not only to my blood family, but also to my spiritual family. Now, for some of you, the parish here may be family for you. You have to interpret those terms for yourself. Then, finance, of course, is where we put work. Now, you know, as a friar, you know, we live with very few things, and you know, we don't have money individually. So I've never had a bank account, and I've never gotten a salary, and I've never seen a tax form. Do you know how much more time I have in my life? But it's still a very important part of our lives because we have to generate income and to keep our institutions going and to feed the friars. So this is an important part of my life too. So then, fitness, that has to do anything that relates to your health. So that could be diet, it could be exercise, it could be meditation, whatever goes into helping you to be healthy. Then, friends, this is important. You know, if you are wanting to develop a positive attitude and continue to get support for a positive thought process, it's really important that you choose friends that will help you in that direction. Now, you know, I understand sometimes in family or, for example, at work, You bump into people who are negative. And you know, my godmother, who was also my aunt, was one of the most negative people in the world. And when I would go home for vacation, I would go first and find out all the good things that were going on in the family. So when I walked into her house, I would kiss her and I'd say, Aunt Magdalene, how are you? Oh, did you hear about Jackie's daughter? She went on this contest and she won. And as soon as she'd hear me talk something positive about our side of the family, she'd have to tell me something good about her side of the family. Huh? But I'll tell you, this lady was very skilled. If I took a breath, she was right in there and moved the direction of the conversation in a negative way. And you know, if I could not steer away from that, I would simply say to her, you know, Aunt Magdalene, I really would like to stay, but you know, I got another appointment. And I'd get out of there. Now, this happens at work too, but you have to understand that if you're in these situations, if you continue to be positive and you are consistent and persistent, you can influence those people with a positive thought process instead of having them affect you with a negative thought process. Okay, so that's an area that you might want to work on if you have a situation like that. Then, after that is formation, and that has to do with any approach to education. This kind of setting is a more formal approach to education. But we should all be involved in informal ways of education. For example, doing reading at home, or getting involved with documentary DVDs or CDs, or watching programs on television that are educational. It's really important that we keep ourselves actively engaged intellectually. And then, fun. Now, you know, children don't have any problems with this one, but I think older folks do. And so last night when we had some children there, I told them, I said, you boys and girls, you make sure that your parents and your grandparents know how to get out and have fun. And I said, you show them how. They like that. But now, you know, the point I want to make here is that absolutely everything that I do will fit into one of these categories. Now, the trick, of course, is to have goals in all of these areas so you're balanced. And that is a real challenge. I think here in the United States, if I were to say, for example, that I know a young man in Indianapolis who's only 40 years old, and man, is he successful, what would you think immediately that I was talking about? Money. See, that's only one area, though, of life. And if you concentrate only in that area, you won't have the balance. You'll be lopsided. For example, I did a music convention in Philadelphia years ago, and I stayed at the Hilton Hotel. And in the room, I found a book on the life of Conrad Hilton. It was called Be My Guest. It was a little paperback. And I opened it and started to read. And when he was 5 years old, he was sitting on a curb looking at the only hotel in the little town where he was born. And he had his hands cupped under his chin and his elbows on his knees, just looking at the building. Somebody came by and said, "Hey, Connie, what you doing?" He said, "Someday I'm going to own that hotel." Because I had the experience of knowing what I was going to do with my life at age 5, and that showed up in his book. I got very interested in the book. But I was unable to finish it, so I took it home. But on the back of the book, it said I could take it home. In the book, it became very clear that Conrad Hilton made the mistake of putting all of his effort here in the area of finance. He had to take his time and energy from someplace, so he took it from family. And by the time his children were starting to get teenagers, his wife demanded divorce because his preoccupation with business was having such a negative effect on the children. Now, when he got divorced, he talked about how much pain came into his life. Then he realized that he could not live alone, so he started to look for another life partner. And as you may know, he married Jaja Gabor. Now, you know, Jaja has made me laugh a lot, but I personally believe that she had a lot to learn about love and marriage. That's my own personal opinion. Okay? Now, as a Catholic, he had been a daily communicant. And when he divorced and then remarried, he could not have active participation in the church. And he talked about how much pain came into his life in that area too. Please note, he made the choices. And you know, this imbalance can happen in any of these areas. I lived with a priest one time. All he wanted to do was pray. That's a good goal. God forbid you should ask this guy to do some work. He'd get up with us and we would go to the chapel and we would say the divine office and have mass. Then we'd have breakfast. And when everybody else went to work, he went to his room and he prayed and he read and he studied. And when he got tired, he'd go to the recreation room. If nobody was there, he'd get very angry. He pointed his finger at me often, saying, Justin, some kind of a community person you are. You're never in the recreation room when I need you. You know, like we're supposed to sit around and entertain this guy. Well, I'll tell you, he prayed a lot. A saint, he was not. He was lazy, he was judgmental, he was difficult to live with, but he prayed a lot. You get my point? See, that's lopsided. And this kind of imbalance can happen in any of these areas. See, this is the challenge that we have, to try to keep that balance. You know that meditation that we did on positive self-image? Every single one of these areas is incorporated into that meditation so that whoever uses it is going constantly to be reminded that you have to be working in each of these areas in order to keep the balance. Now, you know, my dear friends, this is what the church puts, or why the church puts these penitential seasons into the liturgical calendar. Because the church wants us to look seriously about taking some of our weaknesses and turning them into strengths. You know, when I was a kid, we were taught that Lent meant giving something up. And so as kids, you know, we said, well, we'll give up candy. Well, we didn't give it up. We saved it. And in those days, on Holy Saturday at noon, when the church bells rang, that's when Lent ended. And we were all on our front porches with these boxes. And as soon as those church bells rang, we were stuffing our faces. That's not the spirit of Lent. What the church is saying is that if you start to move one weakness into a strength every year, you would soon be perfect. Now, you know, we're in the season of Advent. So the season is dedicated to helping us to learn how to love. So suppose, for example, there's somebody in your life that you have a very negative attitude toward. And if you start today, and every day write down 3 things you know about that person that are good, and start forcing your thought process in a positive direction, and make sure that you speak only in a positive way about that person. As you go through this season and you get to Christmas, you will develop a habit that will work for you for the rest of your life. See, that makes sense. And then the next year when you come around, you pick up another weakness and turn it into a strength. And you soon then become perfect. Now, I am trying in this short period of time to give you some kind of help in knowing where to put your effort in terms of setting goals. Now, you all have an outline of this image, don't you? Can you please pull that out? Do you all have pencils or pens? Anybody without a pencil or a pen? Are there any in the back there?
Yes.
Look, what I would like to have you do is, you see in the center of this outline, there is a 0. And at the end of each line, there's a 10. So, for example, if your relationships in your family are very good, you would put an X close to that 10. Now suppose, for example, that you're not satisfied with where your finances are. Well, on that line, you might put an X halfway down the line. So if you can just make a quick judgment on where you think you are in each one of these areas, please. Anybody else need a pen? Now, when you've got an X on each one of those lines, would you please connect them? And then look at the title of the exercise. It says a life wheel. Do any of you have a flat tire? Now, you know, this is a little simple exercise, but it may give you some insight into where you need to put some effort to create some balance in your life. That's what this is all about. So if you pick out one or the other of these areas and start thinking in terms of what you can do as a result of your coming here to this parish renewal experience, and set one or two goals to try to create that balance, then what we're doing here will have made sense. You know, my dear friends, coming here is the easy part. Taking one or two of these ideas and weaving it into your everyday life, that's the challenge, okay? So what I would like to have you do is, you also got one of those postal cards, didn't you? Do you all have those? It's a picture of, a stylized picture of Francis at prayer. It's a stained glass window that we have at the Hermitage. The back side is blank. What I'd like to have you do is to take that home and write out at least one or two goals that you want to achieve as a result of your coming here to the parish renewal. Now, the reason for this is, that card can be put on your fridge, or on the mirror in your bathroom, or on your desk, or in your car. And every time you see that card, because it's colorful, it'll attract your attention. I want you to remember me up here saying, what are you doing as a result of this parish renewal? It's just a little way of trying to help you weave this information into your everyday life. Now, you know, my dear friends, the challenge is always to try to be as specific as you possibly can with the goal. To say, for example, I want to be more healthy. It's too general. But suppose you say to yourself, you know, I really need to put exercise into my life if I want to be healthy. So a goal would be, I will walk briskly for 1/2 hour every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday after supper. You see how specific that is? You can tell at the end of the week whether you accomplished it or not. And you can pick areas in which you can improve in any of these areas. For example, if you don't know anything about meditation and you would like to get more balance in that area of your life, you know, my second book on successful thinking is all the lecture material on meditation. That might be something that you could put here in the area of formation if that's an interest for you to study. You see how this works? Now, I'm going to offer some suggestions to help you in this process. You know, there is a sign-up sheet in the back. everywhere I go, I suggest to people that if you can get together with people who are like-minded, you will find it a lot easier to accomplish these goals. So this sign-up sheet is for any of you who might be interested in joining a meditation support group here at the parish. At the Hermitage, we have a meditation support group that's been going there for 30 years. We meet every Wednesday from 7 to 8. We have a little bit of quiet so that we can think about all the good things that are going on in our lives. And then we're sitting in a circle and everybody shares at least one success story that they've had. And then we do a group meditation. I belong to that group. That's one of my support groups. When I am in town, I am always at that group. I do not facilitate the group. I'm just a member. I also belong to a support group of friars. That's our community. We get together at least once or twice a week. And the whole idea is to keep the ideal of what it means to be Franciscan in front of us. And I also belong to a priest support group that includes not only Catholic priests, but also a Methodist priest and a Lutheran priest. And again, the purpose is to keep our ideal of priesthood in front of us and keep it polished. Now, if you're interested, you may want to get involved, and if you want, there's a sign-up sheet. Now, some of you have asked about taking that workshop that we're giving right after the first of the year, and there's a sign-up sheet there too if you want to carpool to go up for that class. Now, the important thing here for you is to figure out what area of your life do you need to work on, and then go to work in that specific area. Now, hang on just a minute.
Find a comfortable.
Okay. So, the meditation that we did on self-image is the one that carries a mention of all these areas. The point that what people are asking all the time is, how do you know what the goal is? Well, I don't know any other way to tell you this except to go into the quiet. When we started, when I joined the order, we had to meditate half hour in the morning, half hour in the evening. The whole idea was to look ahead into the day to find out what it is that God wants us to do. At the end of the day, you look over and count all your blessings and your successes. If you start doing that on a regular basis, the goals in your everyday life will become very clear, and you will start accomplishing those things without even thinking about them. And so what I want to do here for meditation is to show you how to deal with a meditation that is specifically geared for helping you to be quiet and to listen. So we're going to be doing an example of passive meditation. Now, in this meditation, there is no content. So all we do is we take you into a support group, into a relaxed state. And then you simply pay attention to your breathing. Now, in meditation, you will never stop the thought process. The essence of the mind is to think. So when you go into the quiet, you must have a point of reference, because you can't stop the mind from thinking. You can only quiet the mind, that's all. And you do that by having a point of reference. And in this meditation, it's your breathing. So you simply pay attention to when you breathe in and when you breathe out. You don't change the breathing. So sometimes the breath may be very shallow and short. In, out. Sometimes it's longer. And if you have a sense of wanting to take a deep breath, let that happen, just pay attention to it. Your mind is going to wander off. When you notice that, simply pull your attention back to the breath. And as soon as you get there, the mind will wander off someplace else. So you grab it again and you pull it back. That's the essence of this kind of meditation. Now, if you are looking for direction in your life or solutions to a problem in your life, all you do is use that intention before you go into the meditation. Then pay attention to some of the thoughts that come to you during this meditation. Because this is the way God talks to us. God is present within us all the time, and the communication happens by the thought process. And believe me, my dear friends, my experience is that if you ask, you're going to receive. That's what Jesus said. If you don't ask, you don't get nothing. So it's very important that you look at what it is that you want and or need. Ask for that. When you are in the meditation, let it happen. Okay. So what we're going to do first is to stand, and what we'll do is do a hymn first, and then we'll get into the meditation. Okay.